Hi, Blayne. Welcome to FreeFX. Let me just quickly introduce you. So, Blayne, you're the author of the Penny Lane podcast and also a trader and lots more things, which we'll talk about in the interview. So, first of all, let me ask you my first question, which is, can you tell us a bit about your background, especially your art background, and what got you interested in finance, trading, and investing?
Sure. So I am a photographer and I've worked in marketing for 20 years. And about 8 years ago, actually, that's not true. I've painted for a very, very long time since I was in high school. But then about 8 years ago, I got really interested in pursuing that as a career. And painting is a difficult profession because you have to spend a lot of time honing your craft and finding your voice and painting in a way that is authentically yours. And so, that takes years for any person. I mean, I think very, very few people are born naturally just good at painting. It's a long, difficult road to kind of fight through those blocks and find your own voice. So I've been a fairly successful professional painter for about the past 6 years, meaning I've had a lot of gallery shows. I've sold a ton of work. I've had, shows really throughout the world, and I loved it. But during the pandemic, all of that really kind of came to a halt. No one was going to see art. Everyone was at home. And my dad was a stockbroker when I was growing up, and I just found it interesting. I started reading the news a lot more during COVID. I was scared like everybody was, and just got interested in the market and was like, I think I could teach myself how to trade. And I specifically really wanted to be a day trader. So that's how I got here.
Thanks very much. That's really interesting. The transition from due to circumstances. I guess a lot of people will have something to say about that, and also relate to the fact that maybe somebody in your family, as you mentioned, it's not an uncommon story. My uncle, I never quite hear my aunt, but sometimes my mum. But I do hear a lot of my uncle in this sort of interview about people getting into trading.
For
But
sure.
yeah, that kind of helps, I suppose. But so in your interview with the you did a podcast episode with Merritt Black, and you were saying that you were talking about the way you trade. So I think you sort of described yourself as a breakout trader, or wanted to try to be a specific type of trader if possible. But could you describe a bit your style of trading and sort of what, if that's kind of how you describe yourself, or what's your trading at the moment? What does it look like?
Sure. So I usually trade off of the opening range. So if I use the S&P to gauge really what direction I want my trades to be in that day. So if we're above, and I use the 30-second opening range, which I learned from Pax on Twitter, it's Pax Trader 777. So if we're above the 30-second opening range, I'm long. If we're below the 30-second opening range, I'm short. And that's just, I like doing that. So it's like a binary way of trading. I'm not trying to buy puts at resistance or calls at support. It's like that it's a way to get in early on what you hope will be a trend day. And if it's not a trend day, hopefully take profits along the way and, get out green. But um, so I'm watching the futures, the ES and NQ and RTY all day. And then I use IWM as a vehicle for trading the futures. So I don't trade futures outright. It's just I trade options on IWM and occasionally QQQ and sometimes SPY, but I found that I'm not really very good at SPY. And I buy at the money options, so at the money calls or puts, and I basically trade it like an equity, being long or short a regular equity.
Thank you. You mentioned as well, there was another thing that caught my attention, that you sort of, or I don't know if you still do that, because I can't remember exactly when that interview was broadcast.
Oh, it wasn't very long ago, maybe 3 months. It
Okay.
was recently.
And it was something to do with, correct me if I'm wrong, looking at individual stocks and then using the stocks to kind of uh, almost front run the SPY to see like where the index as a whole might go, or to confirm. So if one stock out of the S&P 500 is going up, but not the S&P, you would sort of use that as a signal. Is that, did I get this right? Sorry, can you explain that
No,
again?
that's it. You did a beautiful job of explaining it. I only traded Apple for a really long time, and I would trade the kind of, sometimes Apple would lead the S&P or QQQ, and sometimes Apple would be behind. So if like SPY was having a really strong day and Apple was lagging, then I would get in Apple expecting the market as a whole to bring Apple up, and then vice versa. If Apple was a little bit higher, but the market was tanking, then I would buy Apple puts, thinking that would follow the flow of the market. I was fairly successful doing that for a while, actually.
Mm-hmm. So it usually works. I feel like I'm stealing trade secrets here. I should probably just stop them.
No, it's fine. It took me a really, really long time to learn how to do that. And honestly, I didn't learn this from anyone. It was just my own individual observations on the market. So, you know,
Okay.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
mind sharing it, because it could be complete nonsense. And there could be someone much more advanced than me that's like, that's not the way that works. Like, what is she talking about? But it's worked for me. So that's what I do.
I think you mentioned packs. I think Anthony Crudele does something similar. He looks at, I think it's the 3 minute opening range, and then if it looks at VWAP,
Yes. The
compared
anchor
to,
weighted view app.
yeah, that's it. Yeah. Um, Fascinating stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So let's kind of stick to that for a sec and go to, yeah, I was going to ask you a question about this. I'm going to share a screen shot, actually, just and what do you make of this? There's been a lot of talk about this recently on Twitter. You might, maybe it depends, but you might have seen it. But let's see if we, okay, actually, I'm going to come back to that. Can you see this Twitter feed?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
you've probably seen this. It's been sort of memed almost to extinction, but it's essentially it's the 2008 kind of overlap with the 2022. And you know, a lot's been made of the fact now it's sort of broken a bit towards
Mm-hmm.
the end. So what do you make of this? I mean, there's different ways of looking at it, even if you're a day trader. And but what do you make of 2022? Is it does it show us something, this kind of what we're seeing here, or is it just coincidence? What do you think of it?
Well, um, I am not super qualified to answer the question. Like, obviously, just looking at this chart, it does look to me like, whoa, those really line up really well. However, I have heard over and over and over that there can't really be a recession without capitulation of some sort, which obviously the current market we're in, we have not had that. And I mean that, I don't know, obviously you see it there on the 2008 chart. And I I've been I've been thinking that if we can somehow rally here and head back up, then perhaps we've saved ourselves from some type of crash, or, a recession or something like that. I really have found the market so incredibly weak the last 12 months that I don't have any trust that the market is going to rally, or that we're in anything more than a bear market bounce. But, I think as a trader, capitulation would probably be nice. I'm very, very, I like the short side. I favor the short side a lot more. So kind of in my like deep, very selfish heart, I'm like, yeah, some capitulation might be kind of nice. But obviously for the good of the country and your family and friends and, people as a whole. You never want to wish for that. And so I think it is good to see that we're breaking away from that chart just a little bit. And I think as a member of society, I would love if this was more than just a rally and we could kind of get it back on track. Because I know that COVID messed up the natural flow of the market quite a bit. And I think it would be very nice to kind of get back into some kind of flow that people understand and they're used to trading, because I think even accepting that we're currently in a bear market, what I'm hearing from just the general Twitter community at this is that bear markets are incredibly difficult to trade. And this bear market in particular has been perhaps harder than other bear markets. But if something's very, very difficult, I've found in my life, like if you have to go get like a tooth pulled or some kind of medical procedure, in the moment, you're like, this is terrible. This hurts. I don't like this, whatever. And then as time passes, you're like, it wasn't like so bad. And then if you have to go get another tooth pulled or whatever, you're like, I've had 2 babies, and I certainly know that the second time I went in to have the baby, I was like, this isn't going to be so bad, because I've clouded over that, in my mind. So it could be that people just forget how hard bear markets are to trade, or it could be that this one is particularly hard just based on the coming out of the COVID and the incredible bull run we were on.
Yeah, I'm still new to the idea of, because I was kind of doing Forex for a number of years, and only end of 2021, I just switched to S&P, just like that. So, and in Forex, there's no real like bull and bear markets. You just buy and sell. Yes, you have uptrends and downtrends, but it's a very different mentality. So I do find strange this idea that bear markets are a bad thing, and if you're trading short, you're sort of wishing poverty on your fellow people.
That's a terrible way to feel, truly.
I'm like, I'm just shorting some financial asset. I don't see it as a sort of some kind of villainy. It's a sort of wish a recession because I went short yesterday.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't find that connection in my small life plausible. Like, there would take like millions of me for the kind of money I move to move the market. So it's never going to be me who makes without short and makes the country go bust. It's just not.
Oh, for sure. It's not going to be me. I'm in a little bit of a different situation, I think, because my family owns a real estate company, and
Okay.
people
Oh.
buy real estate in bull markets, right? So it feels to me like I'm kind of torn there, because even though I prefer the downside, it's going to be best for my entire family if interest rates go down and the market stabilizes, which is difficult because the market has been so incredibly overinflated. And I would say that's true for the stock market and the real estate market, but it would be a huge windfall for the real estate community if we could stabilize here back to a normal and continue to have home prices go up and, the real estate market return to normal, because it has certainly not been.
Which takes me to our next question, which is, when it comes to family and friends, what do they make of your interest in trading?
Well, I would say that my general community, and certainly people who like my art and know me kind of superficially online as an artist or as a someone who does marketing, I think very, very few of them know about the trading. I keep those lives of mine very, very separate. And I'd always just thought that was because I didn't really want my people at work or my art patrons to think that I was distracted. But I never really thought about my online trading persona negatively impacting my real life. But I've recently been very, very, very thankful that my community, my in-person and my art community don't know anything about my trading life. It's actually turned out to be a massive blessing. So yeah. But my mom's an entrepreneur. She owns the real estate company. She really could not be more behind me. She thinks it's very cool. She also finds the stock market to be fascinating. And I would say that my other good close friends are fairly neutral on it. I'm the type of person who gets very, very, very involved and invested in my passions, to the point where if I really start to love something, then I just really force it on other people. And I'm like, this is no longer my thing. This is our thing. We're all going to be very into this. And I have not done that as much with trading. However, my friends are used to, like, she's on her own island. She's doing her own thing. She's in her own world. Like, she will be here with us for some things, but I get very caught up in my own mind and in my own goals. And I'm incredibly success driven. So sometimes that does get in the way of just my general life.
I'm grateful for your time, Blayne, because it's, when I see the Lane podcast, I sense that there's, you decided to do this for yourself. I mean, it's something that you wanted to do, but obviously because I don't know you, personally, but what I get from and what other people get from your Twitter feed and that is that you're a very genuine person. You post your P&L and you say when things are not good, and you say, which actually that's my next question. How do you find the Twitter space? I just recently noticed the comment that you said about people hating on you, and I'm wondering, there's obviously lots of good things about Twitter. Would you say, sort of draw the sums of being on Twitter so far? How's it been?
I think that the goods, maybe the good parts of Twitter for me slightly outweigh the bad parts. I never really thought that it would be possible for me to create any kind of online persona and stuff. So I think the goodness of Twitter has slightly outweighed the bad part. I felt that being a female on Twitter in the day trading community it's something that I've really taken on as, like, we need more women in this space. And I thought that it would be very cool to be very open and honest about my journey as a trader, to give other women hope that it could be done, because you don't see a lot of people documenting all the good and the bad parts of everything. And I thought it would be just kind of extra special for a woman to do it. And so now I have this community of people who really want to see me succeed. And while on the surface that is wonderful, and I feel so lucky to have that community, it's a tremendous amount of pressure. And I think sometimes I let red days get bigger than they should be because I don't want to post my red days on Twitter. And it's a fairly heavy place that I found myself, even though I set myself up to want this. It's a hard thing to explain. Like, I feel very, very honored to be in the place where I am, but I think also sometimes the desire to just walk away and not be this person on Twitter anymore is tempting, because I've built a lot of pressure for myself and taken on, I feel like, the hopes and dreams of like thousands of people, which I could have put a lot of that on myself, but I feel like that quite a bit. And then I think that there are a lot of people, well, I know there are a lot of people that accuse me of paper trading, or that I can't possibly have made some of the trades that I've made, or I feel like they make me go above and beyond to prove my legitimacy when I feel that day in and day out, just by showing up and being honest, I'm proving my legitimacy. So it feels like I'm sacrificing a lot to try to be this person that in a lot of ways it feels like day traders need, but then to get attacked or people to say that I'm lying or any of that, it's really hurtful. And I get a lot of comments of like, I mean, you wouldn't be posting that if you weren't trying to sell your service. And in a lot of ways, you have to think, well, those people don't know you because I've never tried to sell a service. I have no business selling a service. All I'm trying to do is just tell a story here. And but it's like I'm a wife and I'm a mom and I am doing my best, and trading is so incredibly hard that sometimes that sort of energy it's really really hurtful and makes me just be like, I don't need, like, I could just trade my account every day and be done with it, and like I would, it would be fine. So I've really been struggling with that a lot the last 2 months of what's the value in continuing on here, and is that value greater than the hurt that it causes me sometimes.
That's whew. I was like listening to that going, that's not, it's more than anybody should go through, just to be, because the reason that most people get on Twitter, even money managers who are there just to reach out, just to say, hey, at the end of the day, it's just money, and it's quite lonely, you know, and let's just connect with other people. Let's just see what happens. And but once you get visibility, you get people just questioning. I mean, especially if you don't have a professional money management kind of background, it is very difficult to convince those who are not convinced. I mean, there's nothing you can do. I mean, you're posting your trades, you're being honest when you get a bad loss. I've made videos when I've been margin called, I post about them, but because I'm quite a small account, I don't get hate because I'm not big enough to attract haters. So, but you have quite a few followers, so that, and there's the women online, which is a whole other story, and women in trading online, which is another story, another layer of hate, or of mistrust, or like, and it kind of, I don't know, I just, there's so many silent women online. Literally, they're there in the background. You see it like on trading forums, posting one or two things, and then they might say, "Oh, I don't really want to, to be visible that much." And you think, ah, there's nothing you can say to make somebody feel any different, because clearly there's a level of threat enough that some people don't feel like they want to see that, they want to read it every day. Um, Whereas it should be open to everyone, right? There shouldn't be anybody who thinks they're smarter than the next person, because no way of knowing that they're not actually smarter than you. They might post a comment like the chart about the 2008 penny. Well, that Michael Kramer uh, post has attracted so much, just not anger almost, but real. And he's a professional. um and I found an interview that he gave where he said clearly, I'm not a short the market trader. I've set up my fund, and I'm long only. But every time he posted that, so many people were hating on him, saying, "You just you're just whinging because the market isn't going your way, and you just wanted to short the hell out of this market." suck it up. And they didn't even read, they didn't even bother to find out. They were just making assumptions. And that's what's really sad, that people will just jump on things and just shoot you down with, some smart comment and almost making somebody feel inferior. Truth is, nobody can get the market right. Nobody, nobody knows what's going to happen to the S&P tomorrow, and they might come up with some very clever, check the volume and check the smart money, what they're doing, and this and that. But even sophisticated investors and traders will get it wrong. You can do order flow trading. Pax, Pax, he's done this, posting when things don't quite go right. He's got a limit of 4 tries per day. If first 2 trades go wrong, kind of stop for the day or something like that. Anyway, there's, everybody can get it wrong. There's no way, it doesn't matter how smart you are. So with predictions, banks get it wrong, forecasts. Yeah, I don't believe that some people are just have the crystal ball. So on that basis, what you post is, to me, is valid, and so it should be for the next person reading it. It's not, but it does create pressure. Sure, you feel responsible that some people might be following and even acting on, ideas that you post out there. And I'm always very aware of that. If I post anything, to try and put it in triple underlined writing, this is not for anybody to copy. So, but anyway, I really felt when you said all that, it just it's very sad, really, that you should feel like that. But it is what it is. I hope it doesn't stop you being out there. Because it'd be a loss to your followers, and it would be a loss to the community. And there aren't enough women traders online. And you're not selling a service, and that's quite rare, that it's your time. So, it's hats off to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just taking it day by day right now and just seeing how it goes.
Sorry, I spoke for like ages there.
No. I listen, I appreciated what you said. It is it's a lonely place. Trading's a lonely place. Twitter's a lonely place. And I am lucky to have probably 12 people that I've met from Twitter that I could call anytime and talk through things with. I'm incredibly lucky to have that. But even despite the real relationships I've formed on there, it's lonely, especially I feel like when people kind of turn on you, it just gets lonelier and lonelier. So
Yeah. So I was going to ask you about the Penny Lane podcast.
sure.
And so while you're telling me about it, I'm just going to show people briefly, if you're not against that,
No, go
the
ahead.
website. So tell me how it started and what your plans are, just anything you want to tell us about. Great.
So I started it in, I think it was in 2020. I started it with my brother-in-law, and it was during the height of COVID. And we went on a trip together and had a couple drinks. And he said, I said, Justin, I mean, I've gotten a little bit into trading. Like, do you think that's weird? And he was like, weird? Like, I'm super into trading. I've been trading, I trade all the time. And we had such a good conversation, and I've really always wanted a podcast that I thought that we could spend some time talking about the market. And it was so funny that I thought that people would enjoy listening to it. So initially, my sister, he's married to my sister. Initially, my sister and my husband were on the podcast with us, and we would just get together every week for about an hour and go over kind of what had happened in each of our weeks. And I really loved the podcast for that. And as it grew, it became a pretty big time commitment. So my sister and my husband kind of dropped off, and they don't know much about trading either. So I think they felt like we were getting a little bit more nitty gritty, and we started bringing on traders. And then the point of the podcast kind of became me interviewing traders that were further along in their process than I was, and trying to get advice from them. And all of these titles of these episodes that we're looking at, it looks like we are talking about the other traders' stories, and we do talk about the other traders' stories, but I got so much personal information and personal advice from all of these that it was truly invaluable. And I love that about the podcast. And then I also made some incredible relationships. So what we were just looking at the episode I did with Anthony Crudele, which was really a pivotal episode for me, because after that episode, I started working with him on his new venture called Place Your Trades, which is a network surrounded, or it's about event contracts, which are a new product from CME. And it is their daily options that you can buy in 10 futures markets, basically predicting if you think the market's going to go higher or lower that day. And I've been working with him since the summer, really crafting the narrative for that company and working with him in a marketing position. And I also did a show for him every Friday with Pax, which is how I got to know Pax, which has really been life-changing for me, very life-changing. And we just launched a new website. And I also hit a bit of a snag with the Penny Lane podcast during all of this. And a lot of that was I was doing 2-hour-long episodes a week, and that's a lot for anybody to do, but especially someone with, I'm an artist and I work in marketing, and I was working with Anthony, and it just got to be a bit of a burden, which is not anything I ever wanted. And then I've also talked on Twitter so much about my struggles with monetizing the podcast. So I was losing money. It was costing me a lot of money to make. And, there were some reasons why I wasn't really sure. Those are the reasons why I wasn't really sure if I wanted to go on with it. And then I don't really, really want to get into what happened to me on Twitter recently, but there was a situation where, I just started feeling like nobody appreciated the contribution that I made to the community with the Penny Lane podcast, which was a very difficult way to feel when I put so much of my own money and my own time into doing it, and thought of it very much as a service that I provided for a community that I really loved. And decided at that time to just take a pause from the podcast and see where life took me. And I actually announced this morning that I'm going to be doing a sort of second version of the podcast for the Place Your Trades Network. It's going to be on Tuesdays, and it's not going to be the Penny Lane podcast anymore. It's going to be called the Intermediate Trader. So it's for traders who have been trading, over a year and don't need to be explained what VWAP is, or the 20 EMA, or the timeframes, things that we spent 2 seasons really going over. And I don't really want to talk about that anymore. I'm really obsessed with stories. That's why I'm an artist. That's why I'm in marketing. I love stories. So I do want to continue to focus on people's stories and then talk about specific strategies they use. And I also have learned, the longer that I'm on this journey, that it's a painful and solitary journey masked in happiness. You look at it and you think, There's a way for me to make money and not have to report to anybody else. And, there's all these kind of hopeful promises when you get started. And then the further down the road you are, the more scarred you are, the more deep, punches you've taken. And you get really hardened to a lot of things. And that's not a bad thing, I don't think. I feel much stronger than I did when I started on this journey. It's sort of like building your own little calluses everywhere against some feelings. But where people are on the middle of their journey, it's a different, I think, kind of sadder place than where people are on the beginning of their journey when they're full of hope, or even where people are on the end of their journey, where they're either like numb to those feelings or they've gotten past the hardest part. It's a very like special sweet spot, I think, that I want to focus on.
That sounds great. And unfortunately, we're out of time. On that note, but
I really talked a lot, and I'm so sorry.
No, don't be sorry. No, just I have to say thanks very much. And if anybody wants to reach you, I'll put your Twitter handle and all the other things that you mentioned on the show notes. So
okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Blayne,
you for
your time.
having me. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure's mine. Thanks very much again.
Okay, thank you.
All the best. Bye.
Bye.